Hi. So thank you everyone for joining me today. It is a lovely Wednesday afternoon, and we are here to focus on monitoring and support. So our Mentoring Best Practices Institute will be hopefully a series. This will be the beginning of a series of focused trainings and professional development opportunities for you all to focus on what are the best practices in the mentoring field and in our work. So next slide, please, Blair. Again, welcome. If this is your first time here, we are so happy to have you. Just some basic logistics. If for some reason you're not familiar with Zoom, no judgment whatsoever. So we'd love to see your faces. If you'd love to share, we will be in some breakout rooms, so you will have some opportunity to connect with people. Ensure that your chat is on everyone. If you want to send me or Blair, who is my tech support today, a message, you can do that as well. We are recording. We encourage you to participate, as much as possible. I want to hear from you all for sure. So that includes, we have the reaction buttons and the yes and no, and please raise your hand if you have a question. We're going to ask that you stay on mute unless you're called upon. So we appreciate that. And this session will be recorded. We will forward the recording, and the recording will also be on our website and our YouTube. So next slide. So just a little about us. So we are Mentor Maryland, DC. We are an affiliate of the National Mentoring Partnership. We launched here in Maryland in 2018 and then officially broke out into DC this past June. And we are very happy to be here. And I hope there might be some DC people with us. So if you are from DC, give us a shout. We're happy to have you. So, our main goal is to increase the quality and quantity of mentoring relationships across Maryland and DC, to close the mentoring gap and ensure that our youth here in Maryland and DC have as many caring adults as possible in their lives, so we can ensure that they're doing great. So we do this lots of ways, and professional development is one of those ways, and we'll talk a little bit more about those opportunities as well. Next slide, please. In case you've not met me before or been on one of my trainings before, it's me. I'm your facilitator today. My name is Renee Angela Mock. I am a certified human resources professional, and here at Mentor Maryland, DC, I am the program outreach and support manager for the greater Maryland region. So I have over 15 years of experience in youth development, having spent some time with Boys and Girls Club, at the U.S. Dream Academy here in Baltimore, at the Choice Program at UBC, which works across Maryland. I'm an AmeriCorps alum. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer. I've been educated by St. Mary's College, Maryland, and University of Maryland Global Campus. If there's any alums here, give me a shout. I'm a board member at Charm City Fringe here in Baltimore. So I hope to prove to you today that I am a capable and experienced facilitator. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about this topic with you all. Next slide, please. Cool. So just some other things that Mentor Maryland DC that we as a group have to offer you. So connection with the National Mentoring Partnership, who are the leaders in mentoring nationwide, as well as leaders in research and data as well. Additionally, it is we also offer free program consulting for you all and technical assistance. So we have a cadre of consultants here in Maryland, DC, who can, with funding from the National Mentoring Research Center, provide one-on-one support to you and your programs. So I will send out these slides with these links, but that's something that I really encourage you to get engaged in, and that we are in a new fiscal year for that. So now is the time to apply and to get prioritized for technical assistance. The Mentoring Connector is the only national database where people who want to be mentors can look for opportunities, and youth can look for mentors. So if your program's not registered for that, please register. Again, we're have these trainings. We'll talk about what we have coming up a little bit later in the session. We'll talk about the EEP. So there's lots of ways to keep up with us and to please use us. We're here for you all. So be in touch with us, and we hope that you'll use some of these opportunities to the best possible outcome for your program. Next slide. You got it, Blair? Next slide. Cool. So just some more ways that we're able to connect. Those links, again, will be ready for you. Let me send this out. So next slide. So I want to jump into our objectives real quick, and then we'll get started, get to know each other a little bit better. But so our goals for today, and what you will definitely be leaving here with, is the practice of application of monitoring and support, which is one of the standards from the elements of effective practice. That you'll be able to describe the role of post-match monitoring and support as far as what it has to do with child safety, match longevity, and positive outcomes, and that you'll be able to articulate some things that you're going to do next to ensure that your processes that your program uses is up to snuff as far as supporting quality mentoring relationships. So I'm going to launch a few polls just so we can kind of get an idea of who's here and where we're all coming from. There might be some opportunity to click more than one answer. Click what applies to you. And yeah, let's get this started. So I'm going to launch this. It should pop up right on your screen. And there are a few questions. So take your time answering. The first question is, what best describes your role? You can choose more than one answer. Are you the person at your organization monitoring and supporting mentors? Are you a program leader? Are you the big boss, or do you have influence over how your program is structured? Let us know. Are you familiar with the elements of effective practice? Yes or no? No judgment. We're gonna go over it together. Have you welcomed new mentors to your program this fall? This timing is not random. I used to recruit and monitor and support mentors in my previous life, and fall is a big time for bringing mentors in. So just want to see whether people are balancing bringing in new people. And then for your program, do mentors meet their mentees on site? So at a site where you are, whether you're school-based or in a church or community center, is your program community-based? Do your mentors meet their mentees out in the community, visiting them at home, or taking them to places in the community? Are your mentors meeting their mentees virtually? So in what we call e-mentoring, that is things like Zoom, phone, text, basically anything where they're not physically together, but they're connecting electronically. So I'll give you a few more minutes to get through the poll, like a few more people to answer, but it looks like we have a good variety of people here. And then we'll see, I'll share with you all who's all here with us today. Give it 20 more seconds if you're able to complete the poll and who you are. And again, this will help guide some of your discussions later and also help me be able to translate the information so it's as practical as possible for you all. So I want this to be, again, all of our trainings to be useful for you. All right, I'm going to shut it down in 3, 2, 1. Cool. All right, and let me share these results. So it seems that we have, a variety of people here, people who are providing support to mentors, people running programs, and people who are influencing programs. So I'm glad that all these types of people are in the room and that you have the ability to, make changes and structures and input your programs. It seems that many of us are familiar with the EEP. I am happy to see that. That is a document that you can get on our website or the National Mentor Partnership website. So you're able to get a free copy quite easily. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, no worries. We're gonna, introduce that entire topic next. And then, yeah, it seems like most of you have welcomed new mentors to your program this fall. It's a very exciting time, and also a time where this information is hopefully even more useful because it's, from the beginning, when a prospective mentor comes to meet your program, that's going to gauge the beginning of their experience and how they take in that information. So this is, all those times that we're monitoring and supporting mentors can influence, how long they stay with your program and what those outcomes are. Great. And then lastly, it seems that a pretty good split that a lot of you have site-based mentoring programs. That's my most recent program experience as well. We had mentors come to our site. So when we talk about site-based, we're talking about the supervision aspect is quite a bit easier because they're physically right there. A few of you are coming from community-based programs, so mentors, their mentees in the community, and you might not be present as a supervisor. And then a lot of virtual mentoring as well, which I probably could have guessed at this time. I've experienced with virtual mentoring as well. And if you guys are interested in a more specific training about virtual mentoring, please let us know in our survey at the end of training. That is a growing area of research and development. And I know that many programs are practicing that now. So I want to ensure that everyone has the most up-to-date information about how to do that effectively. So yeah, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Blair, if you want to go to the next slide. Cool. So the EEP, this is the Elements of Effective Practice. For those who are not aware, this is a document based on research done by the National Mentoring Partnership. These are research informed practices that set standards and benchmarks for programs to ensure that A, children are safe, and B, that mentoring is effective. So this is about, promoting relationship quality and the strong outcomes that undoubtedly your program is looking for. And it really gives information, from program management to leadership to evaluation. So everybody's kind of role in a program, there's something for them in this document, in this book, that you can use and to ensure, again, to do that evaluation about, whether your program is meeting those standards. So specifically today, we're talking about standard 5, which is monitoring and support. And we're going to start by going over some of those benchmarks, which is physically or literally this is going to be a checklist. And actually, I'm also going to put in the chat right now. Or maybe I'm not going to put it in the chat right now. I'm going to have a document for you all. So later on, we're going to be able to review and check what benchmarks your organization is meeting. So first, we're going to start with benchmarks, and it will go to enhancements. So benchmarks is really like we're talking about a minimum standard of quality. If you're going over this and you're realizing that your program isn't meeting a certain benchmark, again, this is not a place of judgment. This is a place of, we're all looking to improve, at least programmatically. So ideally, the program is in touch with your mentors and mentees at least twice a month for the first month of the match and then once a month afterwards. For those of you with site-based, you're probably making, personal contact with them much more frequently because you literally see them when they come in. Before community-based programs, that might take an extra bit of effort to keep in contact. So again, when a match is being made, that first month, twice a month, and after that, at least once a month. At each contact, so whenever a mentor is connecting with a mentee, we want to be sure that you're able to connect with mentors kind of through a protocol to check in. And then again, you're doing that same thing with your mentees as well. You're checking in with everybody about their experience. And we'll go over some of those procedures as well. We want to ensure that you are, did this just change? Yeah, go back, thank you. We want to ensure that, again, we're following evidence-based protocols, and we're doing that assessment as a relationship is building to ensure that it's going well. Nobody wants to be, trapped in a relationship that's not going well. And I say too that, not everyone is going to be the right fit the first time you match someone, and matching is really an art form. So again, you want to have those assessments in place so you can ensure that people are in a right relationship that's going in the right direction. But we also want to ensure that the program, are connecting with another adult in a mentee's life on that same frequency as you are contacting the mentor. So whether that's a parent, guardian, teacher, whoever's the most influential person in a mentee's life, that you're able to connect with them as well to get another perspective about how that relationship might be going. And then again, you're making contact with parents and guardians on a regular basis with a procedure. And those things can be flexible and vary by program, and we'll talk more about that. But we want to ensure that those procedures are there and that everyone's kind of on the same page about that. Next slide, please. Cool. This is our next set of benchmarks before we get into enhancements. So again, these are kind of the minimum line that we want to hopefully exceed. But again, that you are assessing matches to determine whether they should be closed or encouraged to continue. Another standard of the EEP is closure. So you'll have that to refer to should you need to close a match, which it happens to everybody. Again, that you are documenting any mentor-mentee meeting. So those meetings, how are you keeping record of it? What kind of information are you tracking? We need to be tracking, something, at least when and where something is happening and how it's going. We want to ensure that you as a program are giving your mentors as many resources to address challenges in their relationship. So we're talking about training mentors and providing that support and any ongoing information that you may be able to give them to support them as they're moving forward. Again, we want to ensure that mentees and their families have access to resources as well based on their needs. So I know that many programs work hard to do that, and I trust that you all do because you know your family's best. And then again, programs, you all providing an opportunity at least once a year after that initial match for your mentors to go through training. So we would call that supplemental training, ongoing training. And I would encourage too that you hear during, if you're doing that assessment with your mentors, that you're going to know what training topic would be most important to them. And again, making sure that information for them is a good use of their time and helps to support that relationship. And then exchanging feedback with mentors about how things are going with the mentee. And again, just kind of that freedom and transparency of communication will keep mentors engaged in, what their work is in providing for the mentee. Next slide, please. So this next bit are enhancements. So if you want to go above and beyond, which we hope you will, evidence says that these enhancements will ensure that mentors are with programs longer and doing even better work. So ideally, again, this is more for community-based programs, that programs conduct a minimum of one in-person monitoring and support meeting per year. I'm guessing that maybe you do that much more often or have informal meetings, but again, that you're making it clear to your mentors that they're being monitored, and B, that you are there to support them. Hosting group activities for matches over the course of a year so they can connect with other mentors and mentees. Recognizing mentors for their contributions. National Mentoring Month is coming up in January, which is like an ideal time to give recognition to your mentors. So ensuring that you're doing that will really help with retention as well. And then again, ideally that you are expressing that same thanks to family, and that families are able to connect with mentors ideally once a year. So again, those are kind of those enhancements, what we can do to even further do our best work when as far as it comes to mentoring or monitoring and support. So for our next slide, I'm going to kind of ask the question, why do you think monitoring and supporting the why do you think monitoring and supporting the mentor-mentee relationship on an ongoing basis is important? So essentially, why are we talking about this? Why is monitoring and support important when we think about a mentor's time in our program, and also when we think about the kids in our programs? So feel free to write in the chat if you want to raise your hand and come off mute. The question is, why is support in this particular standard of the EEP, why is it so important for our programs? Any thoughts? Here we go. Let me see. So check your matching process. Yes, like I said, when you are doing that beginning matching, this mentor is still a new person to you. And again, I say it's an art because you can only do so much to ensure that a match on that front end will go well. Better to catch problems and concerns early. Yes, we're going to talk about red flags in a bit. Great. To determine if participants are committed to a program, especially new participants. Yeah. So for your new kids in your program too, anybody new who's coming in, to ensuring that everybody's ready for a mentoring relationship, and to measure your success exactly, Shaniqua. So from the beginning of these relationships, this information, some of the tracking that I've talked about doing, that's not just for the sake of monitoring and supporting, that's for your own evidence that your program is working and that it's great. Oh, wow, that's so great. The chat's blowing up. We'll send out the chat as well, actually. A program can become insular and lose focus. Yes, we don't want to be stuck in our bubble. We want to ensure that everybody's on track. Evaluation. And it also, yes, gives you the opportunity to maybe give a mentor who's doing fine or good, give them some more guidance. It helps to adjust goals and give feedback. Yes, getting that feedback loop open for you, for mentors, and for mentees. We want to hear what our kids' experiences are as well. Great, thank you so much. I'm going to share some research for you as well about why this is so important. So next slide, please. Ooh, you can click all the way through. Thank you. So the goals of, I'll go back. Thank you. Yeah, so the goals of monitoring support are to create relationships that meet your intended design. So, what your program is intending to do, your program's purpose, your program's outcomes. So, the goals of your program, really, that work is done, ends up being done by mentors. So, this monitoring support gives you the opportunity to ensure that there's a connection between your vision and mission and goals to what's actually happening between mentors and mentees. And then, of course, we're also talking about risk management and minimizing risk and ensuring that children are safe, which anybody who works with youth, that is our most important job, to ensure a child's safety and welfare are protected. And relationship support allows us to monitor that relationship development process and problem solve when necessary. We hope there's never a problem, but life is life. And anybody who's worked with kids knows that things come up. So again, we're trying to problem solve, ensure people are safe, and then ultimately provide that relationship with a platform for continued success and letting them know that you're invested too, and that you're another party that's invested in making sure that that relationship is successful. And again, effective matching helps relationships develop organically, but matching, is an art form, and all relationships run into challenges and can benefit from that consistent communication with you. You're the expert of your program. Um, and again, that kind of ongoing learning and support is really going to set that relationship up for success. Next slide, please. So this is talking about Renee Spencer's research about why mentoring relationship may fail. Essentially, most often because the experience didn't meet the needs or expectations of a volunteer, and then they end up, disengaging with a mentee. I've hosted many trainings here and talked about, how and why mentor training is so important, and from the beginning, being as clear as possible about expectations affects longevity in a program. So, what are you able to do on the front end to ensure that when you're doing that monitoring and support, those again communication is ongoing, transparent, and everyone is clear about what expectations are, because that is honestly a very, very quick way for a mentor to become disengaged. Excuse me. And then thinking about cultural gaps and where our mentors are coming from. Of course, very often we want our youth to be exposed to different kinds of people, and there's value to that. But have you put a mentor and mentee in a situation where they're prepared to bridge cultural gaps? Is that an area that you can fill by training or by monitoring and support? So we want to ensure that we're helping a mentor and a mentee to bridge culture, not that we're engaging with families, because if a family's bought in, if a parent's bought in and is able to remind their kid to go meet their mentor, that's going to support you. So ensuring that families are bought into the process as well. And then again, this perceived lack of youth motivation. Are your mentees ready to be in a mentoring relationship? Because a mentor coming in from the outside, if they're not really understanding of what kids are like, or that kids might be reticent to try something new, we want to ensure that that's not being misinterpreted, and that again, with your monitoring and support, that can be avoided. So again, we want to ensure that you're engaged in this process, from the get-go, of ensuring these relationships are going to work out to the benefit of the mentor's time in your program and to your mentees' positive youth outcomes. Next slide, please. Right. Again, why is it important? Again, early training increases match length. This is why training is one of the standards of the EEP, and why it should be a mentor goes through training before they ever see or meet a child at your program. These are all different kind of steps where we can catch those red flags and potentially disrupt something that could be harmful later. So get training done. Make sure that it's meaningful. On our website, we have a template mentor 101 training that you can download, use, and edit to your delight. And that is for programs, because we believe that every mentor needs to go through a useful training that talks about some of these things we're talking about: cultural gaps, youth development. So important. And again, that's your investment into the longevity of a match. Again, those regular support calls of those benchmarks, that you are in touch with your mentors, and then being in touch with parents and youth. Ideally, the more meetings, the better. But we know from other standards in the EEP about kind of that minimum expectations for meetings. Awesome. Next slide, please. So some more kind of tips for best practices. And again, I'm going to try to give a context for site-based programs versus community-based programs. So a clear process for checking in for starting a meeting. So whether that's their community base and they literally check in, they send a text, they write an email, they start to write their report for the day, something that alerts everybody that this meeting has begun. For people on site, that a mentor comes into your building, checks in with a staff member, might get some information about how their kid is feeling, their mentor or mentee is feeling that day, and that they know where to go and what to do. So that can be really, really important, and is an opportunity for you to build a relationship with your mentors, because you want your mentors to be engaged and attached to your program as well, because that kind of community building will again increase longevity of that mentor's time in your program. A clear process for seeking feedback. So letting mentors know that at any point they can talk to you and ask you questions and give feedback about their experience. And that goes for mentees as well. We need to be checking in with our kids about how things are going, because we like to say in the social work field, people are the experts of their own lives. And while you may be across the room supervising, people are the experts of their own relationships, the people inside those relationships. So getting feedback from mentors, from mentees, how is it going? And then if something comes up, does your mentor know what to do? Not even know what to do and how to handle a problem, know how to get help or seek support for that problem. And same for your mentees as well, letting them know if there's something's happening that they're not cool with, that they know how to reach out to you or to another staff member who's going to help intervene. So again, what are the processes for that? You get to decide. You're the program. You guys are the boss of these mentors. So figuring out what works and is meaningful in the context of your program and implementing as such. Again, open communication, regular communication. So so no one's like, oh, I haven't heard from this program leader in a while. You want to be in touch with them on a regular basis, so they're expecting to hear from you and looking forward to it, and that they're preparing their own feedback to get to you as well. Help matches find ways to reach goals. So whether that's giving some structure to how they spend their time together, letting them decide their goals for their relationship, or are there goals that that you as the program have for them. So ensuring that they have the tools and resources they need to reach those goals. Address concerns as they arise. Again, as quickly as these things can be resolved, the less potentially hurt feelings there could be about it. And again, that we're ensuring that safety is there. So concerns when they come up, again, that there's that clarity of where to give feedback and ask for help on the mentors and mentee side. And then B, managing expectations. So a mentor isn't making the assumption that every day that they come in, their mentee is going to be unicorns and rainbows. We know that, kids are people too, and they have their days, and, mentors have an understanding of what it might be like when their mentee is having an off day and what to do. Another best practice is bringing mentors together for support. So you may have, ideally, all different kinds of mentors at your program, and some mentors who are stronger than other mentors. By bringing them together, they're able to educate each other, to share experience, and having shared experiences is such an important relationship builder and community builder. And when your mentors are able to be in touch with each other, to share ideas, to share stories and things like that, that's going to help them feel not only connected to their mentee, but connected to your program and more willing to stay with your program for a longer period of time. And again, the more supported a relationship is and the longer it is, we know that there'll be even more positive outcomes for your kids. Again, providing ongoing training activities and making that expectation up front during that mentor one-on-one, during that initial training, that you will be providing ongoing training. And ideally, letting your mentors and mentees influence what those topics are so they are as meaningful as possible. As far as documentation, some of that recording, documenting all context. So again, when a meeting starts, when a meeting ends, who was there, what were they doing, how did everybody feel about it? What that process looks like for you will vary greatly by program, but it's really important that those things are documented. And then failed meetings as well. So if there was a scheduled meeting and someone didn't make it, that we know that something was scheduled or something came up. So that when you look back on your records and you're like, oh, this week there wasn't a meeting. Did we just not fill out a form? Blah, blah, that you, again, have record of some of those failed meetings as well. And again, a recognition. We recognize our mentors a lot. National Mentoring Month is all about mentors and we love it, but we also want to be celebrating, when mentees are successful, and ensuring that mentors are a part of that and the other people and other adults in that child's life are a part of it too. So always celebrating the wins, um, and yeah, staying connected and ensuring that we have time to for our mentors and mentees to be recognized for their work and for their commitment to your program, because our mentoring programs don't exist without those mentors and mentees. So we want to give them credit where credit is due, for making our programs happen, making our programs be awesome. Cool. So if you want to go to the next slide, first and foremost, I'm now going to share, I've prepared for you all here we go. A workbook for you to go home with, which we'll do a few different things in it today. I'm going to share this link with you all so you can download it. So I'm going to ask you download this now, and so you have your copy, and then also so we can work through it. So it is a PDF. You will be able, there is some fillable spots for checking and typing notes. So if everyone can take the time to download that now, we're going to be referring to the workbook for the rest of the session. So just drop a 1 in the chat when you have downloaded it successfully, or give me a thumbs up, just so I know that everyone's able to access it and that the link is working. Because this is a resource for you and I want you guys to have it. All right, thank you, dear. The link is working. Is everybody getting it? You'll want to, it'll open, but you'll want to download it right to your computer so you have your own copy and are able to edit it. Thank you, Kessia. Thank you, Michael. Cool. So I'm going to drop the link one more time just to ensure that everyone has it. Download it. This is for you, and we'll send it out in our follow-up email as well. But this workbook is for you. So we're going to break out into groups. You can turn to these pages in your workbook now. We're going to be working on pages 15, 16, or 17, depending on what room you're in. So room 1 will be page 15, room 2 will be working on page 16, and then room 3 will be working on page 17. And I've dropped that information in the chat as well. So when you get into your breakout groups, spend a little time on your own going through the benchmarks or the enhancements that are on that page. You'll be able to check whether your program has that benchmark. So spend time going through that checklist and making a note of what's true for your program. And then I want you to spend some time talking with your group members about which benchmarks or enhancements that your program is meeting and how that looks at your program. Because again, a lot of these will look very different depending on if your program is virtual, community, or site-based, depending on the frequency of when your mentors and mentees are meeting, or whether your program is project-based. Our programs look differently and we do mentoring differently, and yet we still all ideally are able to meet these benchmarks and enhancements. So I just wanted you to have the opportunity to talk with people from different programs, hear how someone else is doing, because maybe that'll influence some of your own best practices and how your program does it, and maybe give you some inspiration and ideas. So we're going to again break out into 3 rooms, ensure you have your workbook. Those, what am I saying? The assigned pages are in the chat, and I'm going to assign us to breakout rooms right now. And I'm going to pause the recording while we do that. It's 4:08. I'm gonna give you guys a full 15 minutes. I'll give you guys till 4:25. So again, spend your time going through that list, marking what's true for your program. You should be able just to click, and then discussing, what does that look like as a group? What does that look like at your program? And how might you want to improve, or just kind of talk it over as a group. So I'm going to pause now and we'll move into groups. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had some good conversations, and actually I'd like to go through each group and just kind of hear from at least one person in each group, and you can write in the chat as well, kind of how it went for your group, what came up, what did you notice, is there a practice or a benchmark that's going really well at your program or that you want to improve? Yeah, so can I hear from somebody from room 1? These are the benchmarks on page 15. So keeping contact with mentors, procedures. All right, thanks, Lauren. Yeah, anybody from group 1? who is working on page 15. Feel free to come off mute, write in the chat.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Tunji Sawyer, and I'm the assistant director here at the University of Maryland, Office of Multi-Ethnic Student Education. Our conversation and anyone else that was in our breakout room can assist, but we talked a lot about the mentor mentee matching, and there was a conversation around diversity. It's kind of built into my role working with over 13,000 of our 28, I think, thousand undergraduate students. But in terms of how diversifying your mentor pool, what strategies and tips to focus on that, I think we had a variety of different ways we were servicing mentees, whether it's through students that, young persons that identify as being women, or students of color, but diversifying that seemingly was a very generated a lot of energy in our conversation. Also, there was some, just dialogue, I think, in terms of increasing the frequency with which we meet with some of our mentees and mentors, and being sure to do that kind of follow up, and not just doing the matching and kind of passing it off to the mentor to kind of just continue that relationship without further follow up and support.
Yeah. So we've kind of talked about how mentors are kind of out there, kind of doing the work and carrying out your mission and vision. So we want to ensure that we're continuing to be in touch with them, that to be sure again that they're doing it to your standards and on the right way to your outcomes that you're looking for. And I would say too, when we're talking about diversity of mentors and mentees, then we need to think about and think critically about our procedures for keeping in contact and meetings and things like that. Do they serve everyone who has different experiences? Do they work for everyone with the context of where they're coming from as a mentor or as a mentee, right? So because if we're thinking about wanting to have a diversity of people, we need to ensure that the program and the protocols and procedures work for everybody. And maybe they do need to look a little bit different for certain types of groups. So if you're wanting your program to be accessible, to have a variety of people, think about how your procedures and protocols work, especially with communication, and ensuring that it's welcoming for everyone and that people feel included and supported by it, because that could look different culturally or for someone who's in circumstance A versus circumstance B. So yeah, that's a nuance that you need to kind of bring to these benchmarks, which are more broad and unspecific. What are the nuances for the goals of your program if that's diversity, and how to apply these benchmarks accordingly. Great, thank you so much. Room 2, who is working on page 16 in the workbook. I'd love to hear from someone. If you want to come off mute, write in the chat. Talk about match assessment, documents, resources.
I can talk for a minute. There were 2 of us in the group that have, direct programs with mentors, and we're both working on documenting the progress and things with the mentors, working on staying in touch. I was intrigued to hear about another organization that has an app for the mentors to check in on. So I'm definitely going to be looking into that to see if that could work for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we have the technology now, or do we? Or some of us do.
Right. And there was also a plug for the TEA, which I think they said that y'all have, so that could help us. That's something we'll be looking into as well.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So yeah, these, if you know what benchmarks you need to work on, that it's great, especially when you're making a TEA request, to have those specific things in mind. Awesome. Great. And then group 3 was talking about enhancements. So monitoring and support meetings, group activities, families, recognition. Can I hear from somebody in group 3?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Kayla. I will speak to you on behalf of Group 3. I think one of the things that came out when we looked at those is just recognizing the shift from being in person to not, which I think many of us can relate to. And so just keeping in mind the ways that we interact with our youth and families will just look different. And so one of the things I highlighted is that being able to host one or more group activities, or be able to host the group activities or even in-person monitoring and support throughout the year has looked largely virtual. And then how can we do those things and still keep a volunteer still engaged, and our mentors and our mentees supported. But we just kind of talked a lot about, we had questions that were asked about what others are doing, just simply because of the nature of trying to figure out how to navigate this still. And I think that kind of took some of that space. So some of those questions just allowed us to think in that way. So thank you.
Yeah, great. No, I'm glad that you guys are having such great conversations. And yeah, the virtual space adds a whole nother kind of layer to how we do this work. And thankfully, now that we've all been in the virtual space for so long, that research is happening and we're hearing more and more about it. So hopefully there's more and more kind of information to support you all about that. Yeah.
Also, Blair kind of came in clutch for me. So I just wanted to shout her out.
Yes, thank you, Blair. Cool. So yes, thank you for your group work and being active in those breakouts. I appreciate it. And we will keep it moving. So Blair, next slide, please. So red flags, we kind of talked about this. I'm gonna drop some questions in the chat, but from y'all's experiences, what are some of those typical relationship pitfalls or red flags that you're looking out for when you're doing that monitoring and support? What has been common for you that has come up in your experience at your program? And then when we're thinking about those red flags, what might they be symptoms of? Or once you've identified a concern or a mentee has or another staff member has, what do you do? So just some of those questions about when we see these red flags as we're starting our monitoring and support, what does your program do? And again, feel free to come off mute. Let us know in the chat.
Good afternoon again. I think one of the things that I've identified, a number of our mentoring programs are ran by graduate assistants, but staffed by juniors and seniors. And oftentimes I'm doing training on intrusive advising. So kind of coming from that model. And sometimes very early on, there's a little apprehension given that the team leaders or the mentors feel like they're only a couple of years older than the students that they're mentoring. And how do you intrude on someone that's only a couple of years shy of your age? And then if you kind of work backwards, that same kind of thing exists sometimes with the graduate assistants, as well as in their interactions with our team leaders or the mentors. So, I think there's a slight hurdle sometimes to kind of overcome with respect to age. And once I think we get beyond that, kind of in the early stages of training, I think everything is kind of smooth sailing. But I think it's sometimes a very challenging space for peers to kind of be in that space. Although, they're taking the right steps and they have all the information, but I think the figuring out the best approach to make that happen oftentimes. And I think sometimes with college students, there's obviously a lot of information about how intrusive advising is a really good model, but the comfortability with executing that, I think, varies from person to person.
Yeah. And for you, now that you know that, right, you're able to kind of catch it in those early stages. So that's great. That's great to hear. Awesome. And actually, I'm trying to drop in the chat for you. There is a peer mentoring supplement. Here we go. Yeah, so the nuances of peer mentoring are specific as well. So we got a supplement for that. We got support for you for that. Awesome. Anybody else? Feel free to, again, this will be an ongoing thing. These are probably conversations that you and your programs are having internally when you bring on new staff and new mentors. So this should be, an ongoing conversation if and when things come up. Kind of backtrack and work backwards to be like, when could we have spotted this red flag earlier? Could we have disrupted it earlier? And then again, doing that reevaluation of your monitoring and support. Awesome. So next slide, please. Cool. So, so a master support strategy should include, a process for conducting and documenting those check-ins with mentors and mentees. There's resources, training, support, and activities identified through those check-ins. So if they're saying that they, want to do this activity or need this or these resources, that you have that follow-up, and that people are ensuring, especially kids, right? Like, they want to ensure that you're really hearing and listening. It's one thing to get the feedback; it's another thing to do something with it. So that is really important, that we're doing those check-ins and we're documenting it too, to hold ourselves accountable to what feedback we're getting from our mentors and mentees. So in your workbook, there are a lot of pardon me, tools for you to use as far as we're talking about support. And I want to go over a few now. If you want to go to the next slide, Blair. So we do have a check-in document in here. It's on page 18. I'll share my, actually, I'm going to share my screen, Blair. Yes. Okay, cool. So on page 18, this is a super bland looking check-in sheet, of which you can do your own branding, edit to your needs, etc. But you want to think about who's the match supervisor, who are the people supervising these mentors and mentees. Maybe it's you, maybe it's a staff member. Who's that mentee, having contact information for everyone, for mentee, mentor, and caregiver, because again, something comes up, you got to know where these people are and how to reach them. So this very simple sheet allows you to track, or maybe mentors and mentees are helping to fill it out, but when they were able to be in touch, who was there, how they spent their time, and then do you have any notes or any follow-up that you need to do, or that a mentor needs to do, or a mentee needs to do. Again, this is very, very simple. For some, this would be electronic. How it works for your program will be up to your program, but it's really just a matter of like, we got to do it. And now you at least have this sheet to do it if you haven't had a resource before. But this is a check-in that again needs to happen every time a mentor or mentee is meeting. And for those of you with community-based who have mentors and mentees meeting in the community, we want to ensure that we have an option that can be completed quickly after a meeting or during a meeting. So maybe that is more of an electronic or a technological option, so that again, that information is being shared in a timely fashion, because that is really important when we're talking about supervision. Thank you, Blair, for sharing the document again. So that is on page 18, simple check-in document. And then on page 19, so this is for you, and this is not necessarily a to suggest that you would be asking all of these questions in a simple check-in. But these are types of questions that you can ask that specifically speak to relationship development. So particularly for those programs who aren't maybe hovering around a mentor-mentee match meeting, or mentors and mentees are meeting in the community, that you're able to follow up with these questions. So, and these can be questions that potentially you ask together or separate, or that you schedule another meeting, one of those monitoring and support meetings, to have a further discussion about. So questions for the mentors, like, how's it going? How do you feel? Are you enjoying it? How are you spending your time? Do you spend much time talking? So maybe an adult is talking too much or not enough. Is there something that we should be aware of to help? Do you need help? Is there anything interfering? And another thing to consider is that a mentor might not be asking themselves this, right? If they're new to the experience and they don't know what to expect, this is their first mentee. This gives you the opportunity to give them the opportunity to do some of that self-evaluation and self-check-in, to be like, is it going well? Have I been putting enough thought into being intentional in this relationship? We want to ensure that mentors are being as intentional as possible. So again, some of these questions are for more community-based, and some would apply for more site-based. And this is not to say that this is the only list. Make your own list again. So this matches what your program's outcomes, goals, and mission and vision are. So again, we're thinking about that relationship, and then thinking about, because the goal of any mentoring program, of course, is relationships, but then your program is going to have its own specific goals as well. Doing that, adding those kind of specific questions here. And then questions to ask you. So, I mean, honestly, like, do they like it? What are you doing? How are you spending your time? Do you like talking to your mentor? Because sometimes mentors have expectations about communication and how kids will talk, or they're not sharing with me, or whatever. We have to build rapport first before we get there. So checking in that that's going well and that it's going in the right direction. And for youth too, and depending on the age of the youth, may affect how you phrase these questions. So a younger youth, a first or second grader, they're going to ask them a question differently about how they're feeling, than a high schooler. So taking those things into consideration, again, applying these to the context of your program. And then for parents or guardians, again, this will be influenced about whether parents or guardians are present during mentor-mentee meetings, or whether they've just heard about it from their own child, or et cetera, whether they've met the mentor or not. So again, they'll have to apply that to your context, but we do, according to the benchmarks and enhancements, we do want to be checking in with parents on a regular basis, to ensuring that they're happy with it. Because even if a parent isn't present for those meetings, we want them to be bought into your program, again, for the longevity of their child in your program, and of your child in that mentor-mentee relationship. So again, we're checking on relationship development from at least 3 people: the mentor, the mentee, and the parent and guardian. If you're able to get, oh, thanks, Kayla. I'm glad. If you're able to get another perspective, I know I used to work at a school-based program, so we're checking in with teachers and other people who might be invested in that child's life. The more stakeholders that you're able to get in communication with each other, typically, the better for the outcome of your kiddos. So I'm going to keep scrolling so you can see some of the other things that are in this workbook and how you can use them. So this page, on page 20, is really for you to evaluate how your program's monitoring process looks like. This can be something that you, or if you work on a team, that you all can do together to kind of, you've gone to those benchmarks, you've thought about your protocols and processes and what those look like, and then again, see what you need to do to fill the gaps. And then here we have some activities that mentors and mentees can do together, but that also could be used during a mentor training. So some of those basic things like active listening, iMessages, phrase it differently. Anyway, how to reflective listening and how to listen back, open-ended questions. These are really, again, giving your mentors tools in the toolkit. And then, once you've given them those tools in the toolkit, hopefully it makes your job of monitoring and supporting easier. And then again, these roadblocks to effective communication, these are some of those red flags that you might hear or see. So often, mentors, the untrained mentor, the new mentor, isn't going to be familiar with these. So even bringing these to their attention can help potentially disrupt them, potentially bringing up a roadblock later on. So those things like lecturing and moralizing and being judgmental. Talking about those things early on, or if that this is something that you overhear from your mentor or mentee, coming back to this tool and giving them a mentor the full context of how this is a roadblock and how we can switch that communication around. So, and this is a checklist for mentors, but can also be used by mentees too, about how they listen and communicate. For mentors and mentees, again, to do some of that self-reflection about what do they like in their relationship. So, a mentee may not realize if they're too young that, oh, maybe it doesn't seem like I'm paying attention because I'm, playing with a toy, looking at my friend or whatever during our session. So again, giving a mentor and a mentee the opportunity to do some of that self-reflection. Again, when we're giving them these tools in their toolkit, it will hopefully and ideally make your job easier because they're not going to have to go for those questions, because again, they're going to have, again, those resources we talked about referring people to as part of the benchmarks. These are some of those resources, and how you get them to your mentors and mentees is up to you in the context of your program. But these are really good things to incorporate, especially for training and supplemental training. Communication and trust exercises. I love this peanut butter and jelly communication exercise. It's actually very fun. So definitely recommend page 26. We're talking about bridging the cultural gap, page 27. So unpacking our cultural identity. We might be able to see and know, because we know both parties, the mentor and mentee, that there's going to be a cultural gap to bridge. But it might be something, depending on the age of your mentee, depending on where your mentor is coming from, that they've not spent a lot of time thinking about before. So letting mentors and mentees spend that time thinking about their own cultural identity and the things they identify with as an individual, and then communicate accordingly. So an activity that they can do together, but also it's kind of an opportunity, a platform for them to talk about new things and to deepen that relationship. The cultural iceberg, which we talk about in Mentor 101, if you download that from our website, a really great conversation for mentors for sure, and potentially older youth. Rosebud and Thorn, which is a great problem framing exercise, but reflecting on an activity a week, a period of time, what was the rose, what was the bud, what was the thorn. I love that one. And then here on page 31, this could be something that these are monitoring and support scenarios. So things that you may read through this and be like, this has happened at my program. I'm very familiar with this experience. What do these scenarios look like, and what do we do about it as a staff? And for a mentor, what would they do about it? So, posing these questions to them so that you can maybe see, where they're feeling about their own toolkit. Do they feel prepared? I'm helping them gauge the preparedness, because you can do on your end all the preparation in the world, but the real outcome that we want to measure is, does our mentor feel prepared? And are they ready to use the resources that we give them? Because you can hand over the resources, but if people don't know how to use it, they're not going to use it. And then page 32 is some of that data. So I'm going to give you a few minutes now, no more than 5 minutes. So on the last page of your workbook, these are some places for you to type. And actually, if we can go back to the stoplight slide, Blair, slide 24, and bring that up. If you want to turn to the last page in your workbook, and I'll turn on some music and we'll spend some time, but this is actually a great activity that I learned from a training and that you can also do with, I've done it with kids and adults alike. Oh, let me stop sharing. Okay, you got it. Here's move forward to page 24. So now that we know we've learned what we've learned today, and we've reviewed some of our monitoring and support practices, on that last page, record, what are you going to stop doing? Maybe you realize that there's something that's not serving your program, that's not serving mentors and mentees. Just make note of it. And we're happy to stop it if we can. For yellow, what will you start doing? What will you get ramped up now that you know, or now that you have more information and resources? What will you start doing in your program to improve your monitoring and support practices? And then lastly, what will you keep doing? Now that you've done this reflection, what is going well in your program? And what do you know that you want to keep doing and that is serving your mentors and mentees, to the most positive outcomes and success? So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to fill that out, because often I can hand it off to you and hope that you'll do it one day, but we're here together now. Taking this time to do it will only serve you in your program. So I'm going to give 3 to 4 minutes. Turn to page 33. I'm going to turn on some music and then we will come together to wrap up. I'm going to pause here. Cool. Thank you guys for doing that. I always think it's good to take these training opportunities to do some of that self-reflection and to do some of that work and to make use of these resources. So you can move on to the next slide. Blair, we are wrapping up and thank you so much for coming today. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat now, but also to email me. I just dropped my email in the chat and you'll get my email in our follow-up email as well. If we can go to the next slide. Just dropped a link in the chat, or you can scan the QR code and bring it up on your phone. But it is important to us to get feedback from you. You know, we don't want to tell people to be getting feedback and not do it ourselves. So we want feedback from you about this session, about future sessions that you're looking for, and what we can improve, because these sessions are for you all only. And we're trying to keep you in mind about what you want. And this session came out of feedback that we got from you. So we want that to be ongoing when we're thinking about our training schedule for 2022, that we are considering the needs of your programs. And then next slide, please. So just a little bit of information about some more professional development opportunities we have coming up. So it is virtual, but specifically for the Baltimore City Youth Development community, we have the Baltimore City Youth Development Forum. This is a free event coming up in just over 2 weeks on Thursday, November 11th and Friday, November 12th. This is a kind of our conference. There's going to be amazing speakers, well-known people of Baltimore coming together about, you know, celebrating the wins and, you know, coordinating on the challenges of our youth development work. So this is a product of the Baltimore Children and Youth Fund, which we've been happy to partner with this year to provide PD opportunities. We really hope you'll come. It is free. It's virtual. And yeah, we hope to see you there. And then for our Mentor MDDC side, our last training for 2021 is going to be Combating White Saviorism in December. So this is a training developed by another one of our mentor affiliates. And we also did it earlier this summer in Montgomery County, but this was open for everyone. So we want to ensure that when we're talking about diversity of people coming in to interact with our mentors, that we're disrupting the saviorism narrative and that we are ensuring that mentors, we're talking about bridging that cultural gap, that we know where we're coming from, that we're disrupting saviorism, and that we are ensuring that, you know, white people and mentors coming into different cultural situations, that they're able to serve with empathy and with genuine support. So I hope that we'll see you at one of these events. We will send you the links to register for these events in our follow-up email. We can go to the next slide. Again, please take the link to our evaluation with you today to complete. We'll send that in the email as well. But thank you so much for coming. If you liked it, share about it, follow up with me. You'll hear from us tomorrow with this PowerPoint and the workbook in case you have trouble downloading it, and some other links. So we look forward to seeing you at the next one, hopefully at the forum. And please, please, please keep in touch. We appreciate you all so much. But yeah, we will see you soon.